Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Welcome back, Andrew and Adam, to the talk show. We are doing it a little bit later in the week, as you may have seen on social media. I was in America over the weekend, not for football, but for a very lovely wedding, which I very much enjoyed. It was in Philadelphia. So I did get to talk a lot of Philadelphia Eagles football, which was good, including watching the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, which was fun as well. And another one of our patrons of the Franchise Tag was also in America as well. Sky was at the Miami game, Miami New England Patriots game. He looked like he was baking in the sun. I'm sure he was pretty beetroot red after that game, but he looked like he had a fantastic time as well. And obviously got to see his New England Patriots win, which is a pretty cool trip for him to have. So he'll be back probably next week on the podcast, back for regular viewing. Thank you guys for watching this video, and also the betting show and the college show that happened over the weekend. Two fantastic shows, and they're coming to you every week, so make sure you catch them with Andrew and Alex, and obviously Adam and Andrew doing the betting as well. We're going to begin tonight with unfortunate news. I mean, in fact, it's not unfortunate news, because what a weekend of football in terms of score lines, storylines. The problem with it all is the injuries have now started to happen. We've had Kalijah Cansey in the last hour. Looks like he's out for the season. We've got JJ McCarthy. Look like he's going to be missing a few weeks of players going down already. But where we are going to start with is Joe Burrow being back on IR. He injured his turf toe over the weekend in the second quarter after taking a sack, and he went off, and by the end of it was in a boot on crutches. It turns out he's going to have pretty major surgery on his toe as well. He's going to be expected to be out for 3 months now in the game against Jacksonville Jaguars. That happened in 31-27. They went to win the game. Jake Browning came in, won the game. But Burrow's now out. I mean, Andrew, Jake Browning, he did well. He brought them back. He won the game with him. But this is Joe Burrow we're talking about here. Is this season over for the Cincinnati Bengals now?
I think most people would say yes, it's over for them. But looking at their schedule and how well Jake Browning played, was it a couple of years ago when he came in and relieved Joe Burrow's injury? He looked decent, and he looks like he's a stable, good backup. They've got Minnesota next game, which don't look particularly great. No, they might look better without JJ McCarthy. They might actually work in their favor. But, he's got a couple of games to ease himself into it before he gets into the meatier stuff against Detroit and Green Bay. So it's not over, because there's a lot of winnable games in that middle. And I know what we're saying is Joe Burrow potentially back December time. So, if they are in a position where they need to win the last couple of games, he might be back to help them. But yeah, back on IR again. It seems to be a common theme now. I have got a few questions for you later of why this is happening, but I don't think it's season over. I think there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think there's 9 winnable games for them still. So on top of their 2 they've already got.
I have heard, Adam, on other podcasts coming out of America that people are quite high on Jay Browning. In particular, I think on the Richie Eisen show, they were saying that Jordan Palmer reckons that he's maybe the best backup in the league. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think that's a massive stretch, to be honest with you. Burrow, without Burrow, they're 6-8 the whole time he's been there. I mean, Browning came in, he got 21-32 on the day, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Did rush that ball in to get the pretty much the game-winning touchdown. But if it wasn't for the Jags going for it on the 4th down, would we have gone to overtime potentially? I mean, he's a good player, Jay Browning, and he looked like he's competent when he was playing in this game. But there was moments that looked like he was deer in the headlights, inexperienced, and obviously Joe Burrow is a top 3, maybe even number 1 quarterback in this league at the minute. And it all centers around it. It all centers around Joe Burrow. So is it season over in your opinion?
No, I'm kind of in agreement with Andrew, which is incredibly boring, I know. But I actually think that he's probably right. I don't feel like it is season over. Jake Browning is going to be a bit of a roller coaster, I think. And you've seen that in that game that we've just watched against the Jags. There's going to be some really good points and there's going to be some negative points. And actually, as Andrew alluded to, when you look back into 2023, he basically had a run of about 7 games where he started and he got 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So it's definitely a bit hit and miss. I wouldn't like to say it's completely over, because I do think that they have got winnable games that are coming up. I personally feel that a lot of this is going to hinge on the defense and whether they can sort that defense out and get it to become a much stronger unit than what it currently is. Obviously, that feels like it's going to be difficult, but you've got a new coordinator. Sometimes it takes a few weeks for the ideas to really come in, and maybe it will change it a little bit. So I do feel like there are possibilities that it could work for them, but it's going to be tough, because at the end of the day, you're never going to be able to replace Joe Burrow. Like, you're not going to be able to go out and trade. You're not going to be able to go and get yourself a free agent that's going to replicate what Joe Burrow can do. And so because of that, to a certain degree, not that there's no point getting anyone, but there's no point trying to replicate that. You just got to deal with it. And I actually think that what they've got with Browning is actually probably the closest that they're going to be able to get to replicate it, because he is a bit of a gunslinger and he will throw it around a lot, and he's going to, hyper target Jamar Chase, and you just got to rely on these weapons, and you've got to rely on Chase Brown to be able to get things moving a little bit better as well, and hope that O-line can somehow come together, because it hasn't really done Joe Burrow any favours. So you do worry that it might be a similar story for Browning coming up in the next few weeks. But yeah, I think there's still hope that the season isn't done. But I think the idea of them being like a top 1-2 team, the idea of being able to win this division, feels a little bit like it's going to be difficult to keep the pace that they've set already.
Because they are top of the division currently, aren't they? They're in a position where they could do well, where they were in a position, sorry, before Burrow goes down, and if they won this game, where you suddenly go, the Bengals are back. We discussed about it in the preseason of what they need to improve on. Yeah, this was a bit of a to and fro game, but I thought the Bengals defense looked a damn sight better than they have done in a lot of last season, and even in the first game, they were decent. In the first game, I thought they were a lot better against this Jacksonville Jaguars team, who have come out the blocks fighting as well. The Jags were really good week 1 as well. What does help Jay Browning considerably, Andrew, is he does walk into a situation with, as Adam alluded to, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, Chase Brown, who's great in the backfield. He's got a plethora of talent in front of him, and it already showed when he came in this game. He's going to be able to utilize that. But Adam's point is correct as well. Is it going to be a case where suddenly it's Jamar Chase, and it gets a bit predictable? Do you think he's going to be allowed or take the initiative to use this whole talent tree that there is at the Cincinnati Bengals? Because that's the thing that we've never doubted about the Bengals. They've got talent on this offense.
Well, I actually think it makes them less predictable than when they've got Joe Burrow, because I'm finding at the minute with when they play Joe Burrow, they go, it's all on him. It's the Joe Burrow show. We let him do what he wants. They seem to play him out of the shotgun 24/7. He doesn't seem to be under center. I find that they're very predictable. It's probably one of the reasons that he is injured. I think they all know it's Joe Burrow, shotgun, throwing the ball to Jamar Chase. And I think now that they've got Jake Brown in there, maybe they do start to play him under center, use Chase Brown a bit more, bit of that sort of play action will be more enforced, and maybe they won't be as predictable as the Joe Burrow show, which he's going to throw the ball. So maybe this does help them slightly change their identity a little bit. And it leads us all the way back to the preseason hot takes from you, Fred, where you said Zach Taylor's on the hot seat. Well, now he's got the chance to prove himself. We did say we don't think he'd be on the hot seat because, if the offense is good, then Joe Burrow is obviously playing well. And we did say if he gets injured, then he'll just use that as an excuse. But he's got a chance to prove himself that he's more than just the Joe Burrow show. And if he can really use Jake Browning and change it up and do something different and make it work and look good on the offense, then he's got a chance to show you, Fred, and the others that were doubting him that he shouldn't be on the hot seat. He can get it done, and he is good. But I think it makes him less predictable having him under center.
Yeah, you're not wrong there with my takes before, one of my bold takes before the season started was that Zach Taylor could be one of the guys on the hot seat. And you're exactly right. If he can prove that he can utilize Jake Brown in the right way and change up this offense a little bit to be outside of Joe Burrow's capabilities, then he should be keeping the job, shouldn't he? Like it's going to be positive for him moving forward. Adam and Andrew said he reckons there's about 6 games in here that they could win. Like if you went from date to date, really, December 14th, week 15 against the Baltimore Ravens, they are hosting. They're hosting the Baltimore Ravens. That's when he could be back for. So the breakdown of it is they're at Minnesota, they're at Denver, they host Detroit, they're at Green Bay, they host the Steelers, they host the Jets, they host the Bears. There's the bye week. They're then at the Steelers, host the Patriots, at the Ravens, at the Bills. Are you seeing 6 wins in that? Because as I'm rattling them off, I don't.
I think it's as I said, a lot of this is going to really be about whether or not the defense can get it together. So I think if the defense can get it together, then that will really help. When you look at the schedule, the Vikings away, I mean, the performance that the Vikings showed on Sunday Night Football was pretty poor, and
both games, I say, they were pretty poor. In
they weren't great. They weren't great against the Bears for a lot of it, and then it all sort of clicked for a little bit. So it's really going to be about, do we suddenly believe that Carson Wentz is going to be great? I mean, he hasn't played for a long time, so you kind of feel like it becomes almost like a 50-50 shot. So they have a chance in that game. Personally, I don't like him against the Broncos. I know that the Broncos defense didn't stop the Colts, but I just feel like the Broncos defensively are better. The Lions will beat them. The Packers will beat them. The Steelers, I think, at home against the Steelers, I mean, again, we saw on Sunday that the Steelers defense wasn't fantastic, wasn't the same Steelers defense as what we've seen over the years. And the offense is okay, but it's kind of doing what I would expect it to do if the Steelers defense was much better. And it kind of feels like it almost needs a bit more. So I think they have a chance in that game. I think the Jets, they got a chance. I think the Bears, they've got a chance. You play the Steelers again, obviously in Pittsburgh, so you feel unlikely. The Patriots haven't been great, so that's 5.
And then the 3 last games. Miami, Arizona, Cleveland.
Yeah, Miami, Arizona, and Cleveland. If he is back,
Burrow's meant to be back, is what I'm saying.
If he's back for them games, then there's 8 wins because they're better than Miami, they're better than Arizona, and they're better than Cleveland.
You can't tell me 8 wins is going to get them into the playoffs.
They've already got 2.
They've got 2 though, haven't they? So you got 10.
That's 10 wins. 10 wins should get you a wild card.
I think I'm not saying it's a dead cert. I'm really not. A lot of them games that I say with Browning there become 50-50s.
Yeah. We're talking before we've seen them play with him,
but there's the potential is there, is what I'd say.
Does this all, though, speak to a bit of a wider issue with the Cincinnati Bengals? I pulled something from an article earlier, which unfortunately I can't remember I would love to attribute it to whoever it was. But in 2021, Burrow led the league with 51 sacks taken in ensuing postseason. He endured 19 sacks, the most ever taken by a quarterback in a single playoff run, that including 7 sacks in the Super Bowl 56, which the Bengals ultimately lost. And it's an issue that we've gone back to a few times. They pay T. Higgins, they pay Jamar Chase. We went round the circus with Trey Hendrickson over the offseason. Yes, they brought in a few pieces for their O-line over the years, but it's not stayed stable and good enough. I mean, doesn't this speak to the wider issue? If you've got someone like Joe Burrow, who is now clearly is an injury prone, it's got to be an injury prone tag. It's not been talked about, but he is injury prone. And that's not talked about at all, that he is a quarterback that doesn't complete a lot of full seasons. And for someone of his talent level, he needs to be starting for this team, and they need him starting for the team as well, as much as they can. Though they may believe in Jake Browning all they want, he isn't Joe Burrow. But surely this is now an injury-prone tag for him, Andrew. And surely in the building they need to be going, we need to get we've the last 3 or 4 years we've tried to improve, getting better at protecting Joe, but we're not. We're just simply not.
Well, this is the topic I wanted to get to when we first started talking about them. Who is to blame for him keep getting injured? Is it the fact that the O-line's just bad and they haven't invested enough in the O-line and it's breaking down and not protecting him well enough and he's getting hit a lot? Is it Joe Burrow's fault for holding onto the ball too long and, you know, not distributing it quick enough and waiting for the players and trying to be a hero and getting hit himself? Or is it the coaching scheme and the design plays, which, as I said, are very predictable? He's always out the shotgun. What's he going to do? I think he's throwing the ball. It pretty much takes the running back out of the equation, and that's the case. So my question out to you guys is, which one of those three things do you blame for why he keeps getting injured?
Can I properly sit on the fence here?
Oh, great.
No, there's no sitting on the fence on this show. Come on.
So it's really difficult to boil it down to one thing. I don't think Joe Burrow is the problem. I think I've seen. Basically that's what I'm doing. I've seen, we've seen enough, haven't we, over the years that he's not the problem. So I don't feel like they've invested enough in the O-line. And I think that's a real issue. I mean, your left guard is a 3rd-round rookie. I would argue that's a problem.
Yeah, but then you've drafted Amarius Mims in the 1st round only a handful of years ago. You brought in Orlando Brown, who's deemed one of the best left tackles going in the league. You brought in Ted Karras, who's a veteran center, has played on multiple good teams. Dalton Reisner from Minnesota, always a solid guard as well. All right, you're not putting millions, I admit, into that, but names on a piece of paper, that's experience there, Adam.
But that's 4 guys. You need 8.
Well, they had Patrick Lucas as well, didn't they? So, or Lucas Patrick, didn't they? So,
had Alex Kappa for the minute.
Yeah, but these
on IR.
Yeah, I know, but he would be within the room, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these guys are guys that have played at other teams and not been fantastic, though. I understand, Amarius Mims, obviously they drafted him, he was a 1st round, but even when I remember us talking about Amarius Mims, and we came out and said that he was a project, didn't we?
Oh,
we weren't saying
talent. He's
real
an absolute
raw
beast monster. That's just he could be incredible.
Yeah, but not the sort of guy that you want for the finished article. And when you've got a quarterback like you have, who's basically ready to go, you don't want to start bringing in projects as your right tackle.
We've not seen teams like when the Chiefs got battered that year, when it was O-line was just terrible, and they went and spent loads of money. The Bears this offseason couldn't protect Caleb Williams, went and spent loads of money. They've not done that necessarily, have they?
No. And I think that they're suffering because of that. However, what was the other one? Because it's the other one as well, the coaching.
Well, it's the play calling and the coaching.
The play calling.
They just literally always out the shotgun. We know what he's going to do. He's going to be throwing the ball. Are they not setting it up to have more success and stay healthier, give him more options?
I think if we can work that out, I'm assuming that the people who work in the NFL should have a fairly decent chance of working it out. And like you say, he is in shotgun a lot. You are waiting for your wide receiver to be able to separate and to be able to create room. And it is a case of that the defense can kind of just stick on man. And if they can cover it, then it's not a problem. So you are waiting a long time to get the ball out. So that does become a bit of an issue for them. So I do feel like it's a bit of both, but I personally feel like they just haven't invested enough in this O-line.
Well, hopefully we'll see some pretty good performances from Jake Browning moving forward in the next couple of months. And we do wish Joe Burrow all the best in the world to get back healthy and to get back and be the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. This game is completely dominated by great quarterbacks. And that's what we want. We want to see the best quarterbacks because ultimately we get the best football. And that's all that the fans and ourselves, that's all we want to see. So we wish Joe all the best of luck in the world to get back as soon as he can. We'll have a word from our sponsor and we'll return with our next topic for our show. Have you ever dreamed of managing your favorite pro football team? Do you watch your team and think the GM got it wrong again? Do you think you could do better? Here's your chance to prove it. Introducing Ultra GM, a revolutionary new take on fantasy football that makes you the general manager of your favorite team. Start with the team's full roster and build it through the draft, free agency, trades, and even the practice squad to create your ideal team. No fantasy football platform or GM simulator has ever provided the degree of realism and engagement that Ultra GM offers. And none has ever given you the opportunity to manage the team that you love and care for most. Compete against family, friends, and even your team's real GM to see who is the Ultra GM. You think you can do better than your team's GM? Visit ultragm.com to prove it. Next on the docket bill for us this evening is Caleb Williams in Chicago. Is Ben Johnson looking at his clock now and thinking time has run out, Caleb? We're 2 games into the season. Brand new head coach in Ben Johnson over at the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, who was drafted last year, not a great starting season. Just like we were just saying about the Bengals, though, they were struggling to protect him. They put a lot of money into it this offseason. They lost 52-21 against the Lions over the weekend, Andrew. And Caleb for the day, 19 for 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception, got sacked 4 times. I mean, already the call is out there already that Johnson might be thinking that Caleb isn't the guy for Chicago. And what seems to be the issue with Caleb Williams at the minute?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Caleb Williams isn't the guy for Chicago. I don't think Caleb Williams is the guy for Ben Johnson. I don't think he fits the scheme. We talk about like other teams and how they play. I know we talk about Shanahan and quarterbacks that just slot in there and they fit the scheme and they do well. I think it's the same with Ben Johnson. I think, you know, when you watch how they start games and the scripted plays, you know, the first quarter, they've got like X amount of scripted plays. The Chicago Bears are what? In game 1, scored on the opening drive. In game 2, scored on the opening drive. And Caleb Williams looked good on the opening drives of both those games. So the scripted plays from Ben Johnson work. And then as the game goes on and it's more Caleb Williams and he's got to ad-lib and do all of that, that's when it starts falling apart. So I think it's he might not be the right guy for him, not the Bears. Because I do think Caleb Williams is good. You know, he's super athletic. He's got a cannon of an arm. He relies on, from college when we watched him, being able to make it the Caleb Williams show and run around and ad-lib and using athleticism and create stuff that way. And that's just not going to fly in that offense. And it's just when will be the time that he wants to give up on Caleb Williams and say, he's not my guy. I didn't draft him. My play calling works. I want to get my guy. Or does Caleb Williams say, do you know what? This isn't working for me. I need to adapt. It depends which one comes around first, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the term that gets bandied around a lot is system quarterback, isn't it? And, you know, sometimes you don't fit the system and sometimes you fit the system absolutely perfectly. We see that many quarterbacks. We say it a lot on this show. You can be a competent quarterback in the right system and win the Super Bowl. You can see there's a lot of quarterbacks that have done that. And Caleb at the minute, Adam, it just feels like this isn't exactly a marriage made in heaven. I mean, I feel bad for the dude. Like last year, it was just a car crash of coaching incapability. And he was just fed to the wolves and obviously came out with such hype. I mean, people were saying it was going to be Patrick Mahomes light, basically. And there's elements of his game that I watched in his highlights where I was like, I can see that. But Mahomes is just a lot better at going off script and ad-libbing. And then when you look at it on the other side, Patrick Mahomes, it's unfair to compare to, but Mahomes is never had always the best offensive guys. He has some good offensive guys, but then you look on like DJ Moore, and Redunze, Luther Burden. You got two tight ends who are pretty great, and Colston Loveland, the rookie, and Cole Kmet as well. You got a competent run game that seems to be working, which we knew was going to happen with Ben Johnson. We saw what happened at the Detroit Lions. And Andrew's right. They start off very well, and it seems to be, as the game progresses, it's not like Caleb grows into the game. He almost deflates into the game. Is that what you see?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that does seem to be what happens in most of the time. And I think that happened a lot last year. And you kind of hoped that, obviously, a lot of people put it down to the coaching. A lot of people put it down to the lack of talent around him, and that there needed to be more playmakers. I feel like, fair play to Ryan Poles here. I feel like he couldn't have done much more for this team. It's like there's been serious investment put into the O-line. There's, as you said, you've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. You do have Luther Burden as well that they drafted early, and they're good at tight end as well. They've got two really good tight ends, and it does kind of feel a little bit like, well, maybe some of the problems aren't the players that are around him. Maybe they thought, okay, it's the coaching. And the coaching was bad last year. It's fair enough. But they come out and go, okay, so the coaching is a problem. So we go and we get arguably the best offensive coordinator that there's been around in many, many years. And they come out and go, right, let's get him in. So now you've got all this talent around him. You've got all this talent protecting him. And you've got the best coach that you could have got hold of at the time. And yet still we're going, there's a problem here. And you do have to start questioning, maybe it's him. And although I think that he was given a lot of hype, maybe there is just an element that he's not quite as good as what we all thought he was going to be.
Because it's a strange trend, isn't it? Because we say it a lot on here that, college guys are now, we feel a little bit more ready than ever to work in the NFL. Yes, you do have some players where you go, they're not quite NFL ready. They're going to be a good project, but they're going to get there. They've got the talent. They're going to get there. And we actually I don't think we do talk enough sometimes about the players that they just don't get it. They just don't progress well. And there's several players who I think we talk about, us three included, about players we talk about quite fondly because we remember them when they were getting drafted. You guys specifically remember watching the tape on them, remember seeing how good they were. And really, they're just not working out. But in the same vein, on this podcast, we've talked about how Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, these guys didn't hit straight away. Maybe there needs to be more patience, Andrew. Maybe there needs to be a little bit more like slow the brakes and let's get this going. And for Caleb, maybe it needs to be that as well. But yeah, he's got that talent in there, but he wasn't NFL ready. Maybe we hyped him up to be more NFL ready than he was in the first place. Yes, this coach and this quarterback might not be matching here, but Ben Johnson's only had 2 weeks in this, of the main season. Caleb has had a whole season last year. Okay, coaching disaster, but your talent can take you a little bit far as well. And the talent on occasion wasn't really there. And we're 2 games into this season with a coordinator, like Adam said, who was who's the bell of the ball, wasn't he, in this offseason? And is Caleb, is Caleb meant to be the one that he's going to prom with? It feels let me throw some of these stats out here for you. 24th in completion percentage so far this year, 61.5%. That's the league average at the minute, 65.1. So he's 24th there. 22nd in yards with 417. 20th in first downs, he only has 20. 18th in QBR at 57.5%. Do you know who's got similar stats? Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler was better, wasn't he?
But a week ago, I'd sit here today and say that Caleb Williams is 10 times the quarterback that Spencer Rattler is. But if you're looking on the stat line, we've got an issue on our hands here.
Yeah, I mean, it's quick to say he's a bust and he's not going to work because the attributes are there. Like I say, everything we saw at college, the athleticism, the arm is there. He's not with the right guy. I think he needs fine polishing and fine tuning of, if you are ad-libbing, and we are going to ad-lib quite a lot, then when you do it, you need to know that punting is okay. You need to know that just throwing the ball is all right. You don't have to hero ball all the time, because that was a lot of the knocks on Mahomes, but when he came out of Texas Tech, that hero ball and holding on the ball too long and a couple of decision making, they were his issues as well. So if he's with the right guy that wants to say, do you know what, we want our guy to do that and we want him to do this, then they need to be taught how to do that well and use his skill set out of it. And Ben Johnson's not that guy. You're in the system, you're doing these plays, these are what I've designed up, this is how it works, go out there and do it. So that's where it is. They just don't mesh and they just don't gel well together. So I think Caleb Williams, if this wasn't to work and they moved on, could have success and be that quarterback that progresses and pushes on that we think he can be. I just don't think it's with Ben Johnson in Chicago at the minute. And then you've got the other issue as well of the guy that's sat behind him on the bench waiting to come on, and Tyson Badgett, which Ben Johnson sung so highly of in the offseason about his training camp and how well he played and how good of a guy he is and what he does. And I mean, if you follow him on social media, that guy's an absolute workhorse. And this might become a bit of a story and a bit of drama in a couple of weeks or very soon, that maybe Badgett is more the guy that Ben Johnson wants over Williams.
Well, you've absolutely read my mind, because that was going to be my next question about the noise that surrounded Tyler Badgett before the season started. He got that contract extension. He went to the podium in tears. The dreams are made of this sort of thing. Dreams are not made of being a backup quarterback, pal. They're not. Your dream is to be a starting quarterback for an NFL franchise. It's not to be the backup. You want to be the guy in the spotlight. But he, like you said, workhorse, got that contract, very humble. Johnson spoke so highly of him. Yeah, words like that matter, don't they, Adam? They do matter. And, on the flip side of it, Caleb Williams in the media, nail varnish, attitude. For me, I think that's all absolute bullshit. We don't know what the guy is actually like. You can make all these assumptions about these random things, but we don't really know what the guy's like in the building. But when the media's out there saying, look at Tyler Badgett at workhorse, crying on the podium, this is what dreams are made of, and then Caleb Williams is the sort of modern day young man, like these things do matter in the NFL. Not to me myself, but they do matter to some franchises.
Yeah, I think what the media says, I think what we say is completely irrelevant, to be honest, with most organisations.
Right, rule one of podcasting is usually
don't say that we're irrelevant. We are, trust me. I think that's for organisations, they don't care really about that unless the noise gets so loud that they kind of get forced into doing something. But if you're a decent organisation, you wouldn't let that happen. I think what the head coach says, whether it be during season or off season, I think that's the important thing. And the fact that he was so glowing about Badgett and so sort of like saying how great he was, and probably had a certain amount of time and effort in the decision that was made in order to re-sign him and to give him the contract that he got. I mean, I can't imagine that Ben Johnson would have come out and said, no, I don't like him, and then they go, oh, well, we're going to sign him anyway. So it kind of makes sense that he obviously likes him. I think that Badgett is probably a little bit more Jared Goff-like as well in the way that he plays. And it's like, you got to remember, he's come from having Jared Goff as his quarterback, and that's not Caleb Williams by any stretch. That's a really different style quarterback that you've got going on here. So yeah, I think that there is an element of that. And like you say, the words that Ben Johnson comes out and says do matter. And he obviously feels that he's got a decent backup who potentially could come in and do more.
Because usually what people would say is the fix of this, really, if you're not winning games, is You're on he's on a rookie quarterback contract. Splash the money, get better on defense. They splashed out on the O-line. DJ Moore's on a good contract. They've got a pretty good pot of money to be able to improve their team. But unfortunately, money is not going to improve the quarterback if he's not good. And that's not. And he did. He looked like deer in headlights in this game a lot of times, and he's looked like that a few times within his playing career so far in the NFL. And it's got to. If Ben Johnson in a way, this is a big. We're talking about that in our other segment, Zach Taylor, and can he be more than the Joe Burrow show by having Jake Browning and being successful with him? Well, how much credit would Ben Johnson get if he can turn around Caleb Williams? Like, is he going to be the type of coach, do we think, where it is cut and bait, that we will move on from him, I need my guy? Or is Ben Johnson going to be the coach that goes, no, there is something in him, we just need to have that time? I think some coaches in this league are very much happy to take on the project and to progress and to create, to mold the players within their vision. And some are just wanting their dudes. They're just wanting their guys for their team. And he's not got the hugest experience in the world, Ben Johnson, especially being a head coach, but even as a coordinator. But he's seen what's worked. He transformed the Detroit Lions alongside a head coach that is known for his culture, obviously. And then on the other side of it, he had a fantastic defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn. And it'll be interesting for both these coordinators what they're going to be like stylistically for their franchises moving forward. It's fascinating, especially for I enjoy watching Chicago because I like Chicago and I have friends who are Bears fans, and it's definitely a team that I always like to keep an eye on because I'd like to see him succeed. And Ben Johnson, I think, has definitely got the it factor, hasn't he?
Can I just say before we wrap up this bit that a Packers fan defending the Bears quarterback is not something that you normally hear, but you're going to. I do feel that this organization has not helped him at all. They have in this last little bit by actually investing, but this at the beginning, to me, they've done exactly the same as what they did to Justin Fields. And we saw how much of a disaster that was in Chicago. And
Mitch Trubisky before that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing again. They've gone out and they've got a rookie quarterback. And I know he was the number one pick. And I know there's always going to be a clamour for the number one pick to play. I understand that. But you can't just throw them out there with a real lack of quality around them and expect them to suddenly be able to do everything. Sometimes it works. Jaden Daniels, we saw it work. Caleb Williams, it hasn't. And
any danger that this organization is falling into the
exact same
Cleveland Browns, New York Jets sort of how bad the organizations are run, because they've had first round picks and talent and then had players move on and have success.
Yeah, it's going down that route again, and it's just that thing where it's like, what are you doing? I've got a real thing about why are you drafting a quarterback and then you've got a coach on the hot seat as you draft him, and then it doesn't work straight away, and then you get rid of him, and then you employ a new head coach who ends up with a quarterback that they don't want, which is exactly the situation that they could. That's how it's coming across. And it's so stupid. It's like, why are you doing this? And it's like, I know this is going off on a tangent, but me and Andrew, we were talking about Jackson Dart. Don't play him. Leave him on the bench. Let him sit. Yeah. When you come out and you come out in a conversation and you say Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, and it's the same part of the conversation. What did Patrick Mahomes do? He sat for a year behind Alex Smith. And he learned, and he got a lot of them bad habits that he had in college out of his game.
He did also read though.
The Green Bay Packers are the perfect example.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably why I come out and say it. This is the thing.
They've nailed the blueprint of how to develop a quarterback. You had like 3 quarterbacks in how many years?
I don't know what else you can do.
And also on that same vein, Andy Reid and Matt LaFleur have changed their styles around what their quarterback can do. Matt LaFleur was like, well, we can't coach out, but Jordan Love's got this cannon of arms, a bit of a gunslinger. So we'll go and just get loads of wide receivers and tight ends who could probably catch the ball if he puts it in that area and make ourselves a real diverse offense and have an incredibly strong running game on top of it. Like DeAndre Swift's okay, but DeAndre Swift's on what, 4th team now? Like, he's not got a great running game to lean on. Yeah, we're going to move on to the Kansas City Chiefs anyway in a second, but let's just have a quick look at the next few games for the Bears. We've got the Cowboys coming up this weekend, who shot out like a rocket. They have. And they seem to be finding their feet quite quickly. You're then at the Raiders. You got your very early bye week, horribly early bye week on week 5. You're then at the Commanders. You host the Saints. You're at the Ravens. Like, you maybe keep him till what, like the command. If you've not won a game by after the bye week 6, and you're what, 0, you lose the week 6 game, and you're 0-5. What do you then going to bench him against the Saints? It's a game that in most of their brains is probably winnable. Like I'm not overly sure.
The rule of thumb is Thanksgiving of his 2nd year, isn't it?
You think it could be that late? Because I feel
that's usually the rule of thumb for giving someone a long enough chance.
I think they'll probably cut. I personally feel like they'll give him a bit more time, and they'll go for like a Thanksgiving or something like that, because it's. I know I think they're going to come out and the narrative will be, it's going to take a bit of time for the head coach and the quarterback to develop the relationship in order for it to work. And I think that's what they'll probably go down. So he gives him a bit more time.
This is the issue we've got with the Bears, isn't it? That we've overhyped them for the last 2 years.
They win the off season every year, don't they? Isn't that how it works?
And then we're like, they're gonna get in the playoffs. They're gonna do this like every single year. Why can't we just go? Bears are moving well forward. They're doing good. Let's see how they progress through the year. So there's no reason for them to move off of him and try and win games this year, because let's not overhype them and say what they are. Of maybe they only win 6 games. Tick in the box for them. Let's see what you can do next year.
What's Thanksgiving's 26th, isn't it? 26th of November, around then.
Well,
something like that.
Last Thursday, isn't it? So
yes, that's right. So from the 28th onwards, say they get rid of him from the 28th onwards, they're at the Eagles, at the Packers, host the Browns, host the Packers, at the 49ers, host the Lions. Well, for me, there's only one winnable game in that one. Only one, even with Caleb or with Tyler Badgett. So if you get to Thanksgiving, then drop him, you're not going to learn. You're not then going to turn around and go, Tyler Badgett. Because I think he's going to lose.
But then what we're saying is you've seen enough of Williams, so you may as well see what you've got a Badgett before what we want to do for next year. Because if Williams isn't it, and you've given him that long, see what you've got with Badgett, and if it's good enough, then you can roll with him. Or do we need to go out and look at Kirk Cousins? I don't know.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, could well be. Next on our topic list for tonight is it's the end. It's the end of another dynasty. A dynasty that, well, I mean, is it too much to call it a dynasty now with the Kansas City Chiefs? Because it's feeling sort of over. They're 0-2. This is the first time. What did I read earlier? Here it is. This may be the first time the Chiefs have started 0-2 under Patrick Mahomes, but it's not so different from the Kansas City's tough start in 2021, where they began 1-2. They only got to 500 after week 9, and they went 3-4 in the first season. They did 3-4. They did go on to get 12-4 and went to the AFC Championship game, admittedly. But this Chiefs team is not looking good in these first 2 weeks. They are looking very, very underwhelming, Adam. And they put up an okay performance against the Eagles, but I felt like that game was overhyped before the season even started. It was like, that one's in the calendar, week 2, Super Bowl repeat. Eagles were never going to dominate that game. Never. I thought they'd win, but I didn't think they would dominate like they did in the Super Bowl. But it's been a tough 2 games. The Chargers losing that in Brazil, and then now losing to the Eagles. Should the panic button be pressed for the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't think you need to press the panic button yet, but I do think they need to bring him some help, is what I'm going to say. I think there's a certain wide receiver in Miami that needs to get his arse back in Kansas City, and that might make quite a big difference, I think. It just kind of feels that the offense just isn't really doing anything. Mahomes is rushing way too much, which tells you an awful lot about just the fact that these wide receivers aren't getting open. And as good as Hollywood Brown was in the first game, it kind of felt more it was because of the amount of receptions that he got rather than the quality of them. Kelsey clearly isn't the Kelsey of old. So, he's clearly dropped off. And I think he's probably come back this year because he was like, he didn't want to go out losing a Super Bowl, I'm guessing is what the sort of mindset was. And that's why he's come back.
You don't think it might have been for the brand?
I don't think he needs to for that. I think he's probably doing more than well enough as it is. But I do think it's more that they need to get Mahomes a bit more help, and at the moment it's just not really working. The running backs aren't really working very well. The defense, I think, has been all right. It's done pretty well, but offensively, they're just not scoring the points that they used to a few years ago, and I think that's a big problem. So, yeah, I would argue that a mixture of getting Tyreek Hill in there and Rashee Rice back, I think would make a huge difference to this team, because they haven't lost by much, have they? They're quite tight games that they're losing. So I don't think it would take a lot for it to suddenly turn around.
But they're the 20th ranked defense, 24th ranked offense at the minute. And we've said it about other teams where they've been on the right side of wins and there's the right way to lose in a way. And yes, they've been close in points, the Chargers and the Eagles game, but I don't think they've been an enjoyable watch. I don't think they've been.
Oh no,
anything.
no.
They've not been fantastic.
Just quickly,
go ahead.
Just really quickly, two really tough teams as well. When we actually think about it, the Chargers are looking really good, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. So they're not losing to poor teams.
We did not know that. The problem is, we last year or maybe 2 years ago, we would have gone, well, Kansas City will probably beat the Chargers, and they'll put up a good fight against the Eagles, and they lost them in the Super Bowl, and they'll be out for revenge. Yeah, and I feel like the narrative on week one against the Chargers wasn't that the Chiefs are going to dominate this game. It was Harbaugh's second year, defense is good, really could get the offense clicking, and then the Chiefs will be probably what the Chiefs we always see. The problem is, I think they were the uber progressive, weren't they, Andrew? They were the real progressive team. And I feel like it's just come to a bit of a halt. The progression sort of stopped. They've not improved on the wide receiver unit. They've not drafted Kelsey's replacement, really. And I know Gray's okay, but he's not, they've not thought in the future about that. They've had to chop and change their O-line a few times. That does affect the synergy of that. The defense is decent. There's some decent players on there. Chris Jones is still a monster, but they moved off of big names. So Jerry Sneed was out the building. I think they've just not progressed at the same way that other teams are progressing.
It's hard to maintain the level of competitiveness that they've had and keep your roster exactly the same, and as we said, be picking at the back end of drafts every single draft and never getting the elite players. I think when it comes down to it, I think you both said that you think the wide receivers are the problem. They haven't done enough there. But Rashee Rice, when he was in the team, looked fantastic, looked like a wide receiver one. Xavier Worthy, when he's on the field at the back end of last year, was good. So I think the problem is that the youngsters that they've got are out and they're relying on literally old men in Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce. The big problem for me with this team is the run game. Why has no one said the run game? I know Adam's briefly mentioned it.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes went for
Mahomes is
66
their lead
yards
rusher through the first 2 games. Pacheco going into the season, everyone was selling their stock on him in fantasy, going nah, he's done. He's got he'll be out the building next year. And they've not really addressed that. I think they need to get in a running back with a stable run game, because I think Justin Simmons is on the O-lines playing great football. He looks like an absolute steal for them. So they managed to do the O-line okay. Defense will always good while Spags is there. Wide receivers, when they come back and they're healthy, I think they'll be good. It's the run game for me that's the problem. And I think they need to address that. And I think they can address that quite cheaply before the deadline as well, if they needed to bring someone over that could actually push them forward and get that run game going. Because looking at the depth chart of it as well, Kareem Hunt obviously has a role, but then, what else have we got behind that? It's Brashard Smith, who's another smaller guy. And they brought in someone else. They brought in the guy from the 49ers as well, didn't they?
Mitchell.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell. So that's the problem for me. It's O-line. And you got to remember the Patriots, when we're talking dynasty, which is how you started it, the Patriots had a down year in the middle of there, didn't they? When they were 10-6, if you want to call it a down year. So we're saying that's a bit of a down year. They've lost 2 games. Yes, we've said it. They lost to the Eagles and the Chargers. Next week they've got the Giants. Let's see how that goes, because if they put away the Giants quite comfortably, then we know where they're at. We know that it might be one of those seasons where they might not be able to beat some of the top teams, but they can beat all the other teams. So, and then once you're in the playoffs, that's where the magic happens, isn't it? So I think Patrick Mahomes in his post-game interview said the problem that he felt was they're making mistakes that they didn't make in previous years. And are they making those mistakes because it's all old guys and they're a bit slower and not as sharp and not in their prime? Is that why there's mistakes being made that they didn't used to make, which is the nail on the head of why they're not winning those close games?
I think there's also an element of responsibility on Mahomes' shoulder here, where we were talking about Caleb Williams and his sort of being a bit more flustered towards it. I do feel like in these first 2 games, there's been moments with Mahomes where I felt like he has reverted a little bit back to being a bit flustered and not seeing it all properly. In certain moments, I think Caleb, you can see the progression. Whereas I think with Mahomes, sometimes there's a snap, and we've seen him in the past few years create absolute NFL moments, NFL gold out of them scenarios. But I still think there is that tiny thing of him sometimes where it doesn't look like it is all going to plan, and it does the panic does sort of set in a little bit. And like I said, when you're relying on, you didn't even mention Tyquan Thornton. I mean, wasn't he one of the best players of the day for them? And he's no spring chicken either. But yeah, they're going to go against the Giants, but then against the Ravens, the Jags, the Lions, the Raiders, Commanders, Bills. So they've got a pretty tough schedule, to be honest with you. When you look at it, at the start of the season, I would have gone, Colts, Cowboys. I would say maybe wouldn't have given them a great game. I think they will now give them a good game. The Jags looked really competent. The Raiders are still looking pretty all right. I don't think the Giants have been bad, really, to be honest with you. The Giants could easily come out and have a good game against them as well.
That's the game, isn't it? We're saying they played Philly and the Chargers, so we need to see how they play against the Giants to say whether they can scrape what we're saying at the minute of a wild card spot, because I think that's what it is. If we're looking at it, we don't think they're better than Baltimore, and we don't think they're better than Buffalo, who they've got to play those 2 still. So I think it's wild card for them this year if they're looking at it. But I don't think it's dynasty over. I don't think it's too early to say that, because they've got a lot of young pieces. So maybe a down year isn't so bad, and they just get a better draft pick, and they've still got Mahomes and Reed. So,
Would you, Adam, would you like to rebuttal about Andrew saying it's all about the run and you shouldn't be so hard on the wide receivers? Because I do frankly agree with him.
I think that I have no problem. Like obviously Xavier Worthy going down injured is a big issue for them, isn't it? And
He's back.
Rasheed Rice
He's
not
back
being
next week.
available.
Is Worthy back next week?
Yeah. I think he is. Yeah, I don't
And
think
then
he's going to be
Rashi
out for
Rice
long. But
is obviously
I think
forward.
it's losing him and losing Rasheed Rice obviously is really difficult to be able to cope with. And there probably is too much of a reliance on these older wide receivers. I just think that they probably. I don't think Smith Schuster should be playing for them in respect of his quality now. When it comes to the rest of them, I mean, you've got, like you say, Tyquan Thornton, Jason Brownlee. No, these guys probably shouldn't really be playing for him. So I think they should be having Hollywood Brown. I think is fine. But he should be almost like a backup for them. That's probably where they should be. So I think you do need Worthy, you do need Rice, but I think you need someone else, which is why I'd come out and say I think the fact that they are looking at trying to get Tyreek in, and I think that makes a lot of sense for them. So I don't think the wide receiver room is anywhere near strong enough, and that they need that. When it comes to the tight end, as we've been saying, Kelsey has clearly dropped off. It felt like that last year, and he's clearly done it again this year at the beginning. And he had a really bad start last year, and it was it like a few games he had towards the end where he actually looked decent. So that is a problem. Yeah, the run game isn't great. I mean, when you start going through everything and you look at the roster and you talk about all of this sort of stuff, you do look at it and you go, well, the O-line's not bad and the defense isn't bad, but he doesn't have many weapons really around him at the moment. And that's probably the real issue. And that's probably why he's rushing as much as he is. And maybe why you are seeing a little bit of panic, because he's probably looking at his receivers and thinking, well, even if I throw the ball, there's no guarantee that they're coming down with it. So it does become a bit of an issue. But yeah, I mean, running back, Pacheco hasn't looked the same. He just hasn't looked the same as what he was after he broke his leg. Kareem Hunt is just getting older now, and so there's a limit to what you're going to get from him, and there's not much behind.
When you're saying about trading for Tyreek Hill, in my brain, we should be talking about which running back should they be trading for.
But I think you could argue both. I think you could be looking at. I think you could be looking at both things. I just think that. I think the problem is that if you're not trading for someone like Tyreek Hill, you're reliant completely on Worthy and Rice. That's the issue. And there's not many teams that are successful and only have two options to rely on when it comes to their pass catchers. So I'm not against them going out and getting a running back or trading for a running back. I think that would make sense.
It wouldn't be expensive as well, would it? Like to get a running back.
You would think you'd get one. Yeah, you could probably pick one up cheap.
And in terms of like draft picks as well, you're giving up nothing for it. So
who's 0-2 at the minute?
The Chiefs.
Well, yeah, there's that. But like, who's 0-2 with a running back?
The Bears.
Well, the big talk was Breece Hall, wasn't it, as a potential trade target before the season started. I don't think there's any hopes on the Jets winning the Super Bowl or qualifying for the playoffs, so they might be willing to move off of Breece Hall.
I don't think it's necessarily something that you go and do now. So I think it could be something that you do in a few weeks' time, and you'd be looking at teams that are like 1-4 or
I have to admit, looking at it now, it's like trading for an older guy. It sort of it's a little bit like trading for Tyreek Hill. If New Orleans haven't won a game in the next 5 weeks, would you knock the door for Alvin Kamara? Would you kick them tires?
I mean, you'd probably go for anyone like that, wouldn't you? But
I think you probably more look at. I know, like obviously, it'd be your Breece Halls, your Ken Walkers. I know at the time it was James Cook. He's just signed, but those sort of like 25, 26, looking for a second contract guys that you can maybe have for the next 2-3 years on the Chiefs, rather than a Kamara, which of his age.
I don't think the Chiefs would want that though. I think they almost want that. I don't know. It just feels like to me the stylistic way of them is to have sort of guys that know what they're doing. which I'm not saying the young guys don't know what they're doing. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that you could still have Kamara for 2 or 3 years.
I think my issue with going for a Ken Walker or a Breece Hill or something like that is going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think something like Kamara, obviously the Saints, obviously they've got cap problems, which we've been saying for years, and they still do. The idea of coming off of that contract wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world. So I think you could probably get him relatively cheaply. So I could see that happening. And then I think it does open up your ability to maybe spend a bit more on someone like Tyreek. I think that that's where it kind of, and you can kind of get a bit of both and go down that route.
Good narrative and good story if they bring Tyreek back as well, isn't it?
Is it a good story narrative? Really, is it?
Yeah.
Well, it comes back, tries to win another Super Bowl with them.
I'm not.
Imagine if he comes back and they qualify for the playoffs. That'll be that. It then becomes the story, doesn't it? That could he win one with them?
Yeah.
Last hurrah for sort of Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes, all the three.
And also, I know that we say about trying to get younger, get rid of some of these older players, but Hill has still got the speed. Like you can see that he's still got that in him. So it's like even though he's older,
receiver, does it? So
no.
Exactly. Well, Andrew, Adam, thank you very much for joining me this evening, and thank you very much for either watching or listening to this episode. Make sure you catch up the rest of our stuff on our YouTube channel or on any podcast platform, including our Franchise Tag College show, which will be back again this week, and the Franchise Tag Betting show happening over the weekend as well. Obviously, always gamble responsibly. Make sure you check us out on social media. Give us a follow, and we'll see you all again very soon. Have a good rest of your week, and thank you again for watching or listening.